This mini module is on clean language. Clean language is something extremely important to coaching. It kind of focuses partly on open and closed questions, but it also focuses on the assumptions we build into our language. And I'll explain in this module why this is quite important if you want to take the coaching approach. Now, there is a danger when it comes to asking leading questions. A leading question is when you are expecting some kind of answer from this. Now, if we're working with someone, and let's say we have more knowledge of them from the subject or something, we kind of want to draw them to certain answers. And this is why we normally use leading questions, because we try to pretend it was them who came up with the idea, etc. And yes, it can get them to take ownership over the ideas that you had, but what it does is it limits the potential for their ideas. So it closes options. So for example, if someone has a problem and they have the potential to think up 10 or 15 different solutions for it, if you ask them the right questions, nice open questions. If you ask them leading questions, you're going to close all these options to maybe one or two options that you had in mind. And maybe it's not the option that's best fit for them. It's not the solution that they would work with best. It may be the solution that you would work with best. So using leading questions is trying to mold them into what you believe they should be doing. And this isn't the coaching approach. That's more the mentor approach. The coaching approach stays open, open, open. So what is open? You're not introducing any new elements. You're not introducing your opinion. You're just leaving it open for them to reflect and for them to lead the conversation. And this is an extremely important thing to do within this kind of coaching sphere. And now clean language. Clean language within coaching is all about trying to get rid of our assumptions. A really classic example is if I ask you, okay, what were you thinking about XYZ? I'm assuming that you've been thinking about XYZ. And as a coach, we try to get rid of this assumption and we'd ask you instead, is there anything else about XYZ? And maybe you have been thinking about it and you can tell me, or maybe you haven't. But if I said to you, okay, what have you been thinking about this problem? And I'm assuming that you have been thinking about this problem, you're going to think, okay, oh damn, I meant to act like I've been thinking about this and try to somehow be a bit fake, etc. Instead, we want to be extremely open with them and we want them to be able to lead things. And by using these kind of assumptions, we're closing them into what we believe that they should have been doing. So here I wrote, it's never completely clean. Which is true, we can never get rid of all of our assumptions within our language. We just have to be thinking about what we're going to say for 10 minutes before we open our mouths. So that's not a problem. It's just trying to get rid of it as much as we can, or try to realise when we have assumptions in our language and try to think to ourselves, is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? What if I took that assumption out? How can I take this assumption out? And we can use this a bit and try to see how this actually affects others. And like what I've personally seen is when I try to remove the assumptions from my language, it actually starts to really help and it's a lot more beneficial because I feel a lot more opening with the discussion. Now here's just a couple of examples of like what we call clean coaching language. A coach would normally say, tell me more about something, or what would you need in order for X to happen if they've already talked about X. Or if they already mentioned something, and you can say to them, okay, how do you feel about that? I'm not asking how did you feel, because there I'll be assuming that they felt something. I'm asking them now, how do you feel? And if they haven't thought about it, I'm going to give them space to think about actually, how do I feel about this? You could ask them, what could you do to achieve X, Y, Z? This kind of language is what we call classic coaching language. These kind of phrases you can use all the time, and they always remain to keep everything open, and they try to get rid of as many assumptions as possible. So using this kind of clean language isn't, I wouldn't say, the most important thing within the whole coaching process, apart from obviously the open questions here. But with this clean language side, it's just something like nice to have in the back of your mind that you can kind of develop, and it does help develop more open, stronger conversations with the person you're trying to coach.